Hello and welcome to the Rawdogging Reality Podcast, episode 2. So, in this podcast, I like to talk all things, men's health, men's health. More importantly, I don't think enough people do it, and I don't think enough people are honest about the entirety of what it's like to be a man. I'm someone that is very much in the doing. I'm not so much a thinker. I believe we come up with our best ideas through execution. I don't think we come up with our best ideas through thought, through reflecting on the execution, perhaps, but execution being the leading, behavior that supports that. So, welcome to Rawdogging Reality, where we talk sobriety, health, psychology, all that good shit. Today, I want to talk about something more physical, health, and something that I'm pretty well versed in, or very well versed in, is putting on as much muscle as possible in as short a time as possible. If you're a bloke, you want to get fucking jacked. What are the things that you probably should pay attention to, and what are the things that you probably shouldn't? So we're going to hammer into it. I was going to say pack your bags, but that doesn't make sense. Get your shit together and let's go. So there's a few core principles for muscle building, and a lot of people get this wrong. So there's almost like a pyramid, if you want to say, right? And the foundation, I firmly believe, is obviously strength training of that foundation. Then there's things like food and sleep. Then there's things like reps and sets. Then there's things like pause reps, bullshit. I was talking to a friend earlier today about it. And in the bodybuilding space, there's coaches that make it their life's mission to be experts on it, but just to sound fancy, right? The people that we admire in the bodybuilding space typically are your Arnold Schwarzeneggers, maybe even your Ronnie Coleman's, and they didn't have half the technology and the access to science that we have today, and they had the best bodies that we could have ever even imagined. A lot of men, I find, really enjoy getting caught up in the circle jerk of being intellectual and not even being effective. They'd rather flex and sit there shaking their cock in your face, their rock hard intellectual cock, than actually do something. And that to me is cowardice in its purest form. You'd rather sit there and talk about execution than executing itself. For me, that's just, it's pretty pathetic. Call me crazy. So I guess I'm not a big fan of the modern day sciencey bodybuilding shit. If you want bigger biceps, do fucking curls. If you want a bigger chest, do a bench press. Yeah, is there better options? Sure, always will be. But worry about having a massive chest first. And you do that not by picking the best exercises, but by fucking working out your chest. That's it. You're going to get injured. That's part of it. Just like in life, you're going to have failures and you're going to have successes. To expect to not have failures or to expect to not get anywhere and to want to circumvent that off the rip, I think is a really foolish endeavor, I want to say. Because you learn through, I think you fail forward in this life. Big believer that you fail forward. So, how can we build the most amount of muscle in the shortest bloody period of time possible? So, beyond the strength training, sleep, nutrition, all that shit, rep ranges, sets, let's talk about the strength training. So, the number one, and I guess the most prevalent principle when it comes to building muscle seems to be probably two things: volume, so the amount of sets and reps, the amount of weight that you've sort of lifted, and the intensity. So back in the day, for example, Arnold's guys used to lift a shitload of times. Heavy, hard, often. Unless you look at people like a Mike Mentor, who in my opinion had one of the most aesthetic physiques in the world. He was one of the bodybuilders with the first perfect 300 score. And I think that's maybe been only a couple since then. And he still didn't win the Olympia, by the way, because it was super corrupt, and Arnold won in that year in, I think, 1982 when he came to Australia. It was really scary, actually, to see that happen, to see him robbed, because Mike Mentor was an absolute, gun guy and used to train 2 days a week. That's it. twice a week, my mentor would train to a really high degree of an intensity. I think even 45 minutes, maybe to an hour, perhaps, like a Dorian Yates. And that was it. Dorian Yates would train 3 to 4 times a week, in and out, bully his body, and then the rest was nutrition and rest and recovery. And a lot of the research is supporting that fact, which is pretty crazy. I kind of find it hard to believe, almost, that like you can train that little and get that much. And I think if I talk to someone maybe like a Lee Priest was like well, you'd fucking train fucking 2 hours in the morning and then you'd fucking train fucking 2 hours a night. It's like, okay. And then you'd fucking, I wouldn't take much fucking steroids. I'd just fucking, like a fucking jacked Chopper Reed. Exactly what fucking Lee Priest is. It's a jacked Chopper Reed. I love that comparison. I am using it and stealing it, and it's mine, so I can. So he's a big fan of do more often. And I just kind of fall into the category of do more often. I just don't think that if you're an entry-level guy, that you have the skills and the expertise to know how to do 3 to 4 super effective sessions. I think you're probably best off doing 5 or 6 more drawn out sessions until you learn your body really well, and then maybe you can upgrade or downgrade and just make those sessions really intentional. So with volume, anywhere from 15 to 25 sets typically per body part per week is a safe place to be. And then with intensity, they say around 2 to 3 reps shy of failure. So let's say if you've got a gun to your head, your name's Daryl, you're in the gym, you're bench pressing away, and you're like, I can't do a single more rep. If my whole family was going to die, I was going to win $1 million for this, I couldn't do another one. That's failure, right? Not like, oh, I don't feel like it, or like, oh, I should stop here. I'm talking like you will die if you don't do another rep. So that's kind of the vibes there. But yes, those would be the 2 driving factors. So if you want to put on as much muscle mass as possible, I would heavily recommend that you train anywhere from 4 to 6 times a week. Split the body parts up. So you'd probably want to do chest and biceps, back and triceps, quads and calves, maybe hammies and glutes and calves. Probably what I would break it up to be close to. That would be like a preferable split. That way you get a bit of recovery on each one. But that's just me. That's what I like. Then with the sets, I've already addressed that. You're looking at 15 to 25. Somewhere in there is pretty safe and healthy, I believe, in my view, for a beginner, at least to intermediate. And then I think beyond that would be then you're training 2 or 3 reps shy of gun to your head, can't do another rep. Then let's talk about the sleep stuff. So as a bigger boy myself, I've always been probably in that 240 range, 240 to 250 pounds, so 110 kilos odd, maybe more. In the last, maybe 260 sometimes in the last 2 to 3 years, probably I've been anywhere there. Leaning on getting towards 220 now, which would be good. But if you're in that club, you probably need stuff like nose strips. So I get these things called Breathe Right strips. They're from Chemist Warehouse. They cost like $30 so for 30. So it's $1 a strip, and they'll just go directly like over your nose, and then they just help you kind of breathe a lot easier. Then you'll have your mouth tape, which again will make you rely on nose breathing, which can reduce snoring, sleep apnea, all that sort of stuff. So when you see me asleep, I'm taped up, stripped up, and that helps me get the most restful sleep I can as a 110 kilo guy, which is usually pretty hard, simply because there's so much oxygen needs to go to this body to keep it alive. So if you're in that ballpark, or any ballpark as a man, those would be my big things for sleep. Obviously no phone, 15 minutes before bed, all that sort of jazz, but I probably don't do that, and I still get restful sleep. I'll just listen to a podcast before I go to bed. That's my little routine. And then let's talk like food. So you'll need 2 grams per kilogram of protein per kilogram of body weight. This one, 2 grams protein per kilogram body weight. Yep. So I'm 110 kegs. I'll need about 220 grams of protein per day. And I get that thereabouts. Even if you get 0.75, that's probably the lower threshold. So I would recommend that. 0.75, sorry, 1.5. That's like the lower threshold. That's what I would recommend if I was you. Then carbs and fats, probably not as important. I'd always say put in more carbs if you can, if you want to get jacked faster. But fats probably if you want to get the calories up. But anywhere in a sort of 6 to 12 month frame, you should expect to see probably 10 to 15 kilograms of lean tissue if you can. A kilo a month is pretty good. So if you're 80 kilos and then you're trying to go to 90, you probably expect to get there in a year, but maybe you'll have some fluff if you're new to the whole thing. So expect that. But what we'd want to do first is cut you down and then build you up. So where a lot of guys go wrong is they'll think they need to bulk first. Like, unless you have a six pack, you shouldn't bulk. If you have a six pack, like proper six pack, not like you've got a couple of visible abs. I'm talking six pack, clear as day, dick root, the whole fucking going on. Then you can bulk because you clearly have learnt dietary control. But until then, you haven't earned the right to bulk. You need to earn the right. And no coach will sit you down and tell you that because it doesn't make them any money. But you need to earn the right to bulk. Cutting's easy. Getting rid of fat. Bulking's hard because it's a game of controlling how much fat you have and growing. So working really, really hard, eating a fuckload more food and keeping your body fat low. Typically a pretty tricky thing to do. I've always enjoyed cutting personally. Bulking, I just sort of switch off. I'm not even remotely interested. That's the hardest part for me and for everybody else too. So sleep, you got volume, intensity, sleep, and then food. And then look, there's the rest pause, there's all that shit. But to be honest, if you're a beginner and you still don't know and you're not jacked yet, this podcast is for you because you need to learn. You don't need to learn those things just yet. It's too complicated. When you've been lifting weights for 2-3 years, then you can worry about rest pauses, but you need to just get good at the basics. This is the end of your life endeavor. This is something you're going to do forever. So it's best that you just get better at it. Not sort of try and know everything before you start. It's a learn as you go type behavior. But yeah, so about 10 kilos in a year is great. 5 kilos the following year, 2 kilos the following year. And that's kind of what you can expect in perpetuity, pretty much until you've gained about 10, 15 pounds, kilos, and then you're kind of done. Where I found most people kind of stop because you don't need that much muscle in your frame. Nobody really does. But yeah, beyond that, guys, that's my Maximizing Muscle podcast. There's not really much else. Sleep, food, training, anything else you don't really need to know, guys. I'm going to be perfectly honest. As someone that's built men up and broke them down, cut them down, you don't need to learn anything else. It's silly. You're just wasting your time. Just like I said at the start of the podcast with people like your Arnolds, Lee Priest. Yeah, just get in the fucking move the weight, mate. Arnold used to they all had dog shit form back then and they were the most beautiful bodies you'll see. So you tell me. A lot of people will have arguments with me about it for sure. But I don't care about your opinion because I've lived it. And most people never have a physique that I've had ever. Pretty hard. And pretty hard to have it again and again and again and be training for 16 years. So I've got nothing I need to prove myself on. I think a lot of top level people would agree with me too. Basics, do them well, stay consistent, and that's all you can hope for. And you'll learn through doing. Hope this podcast helped. Hope this was a really good training for you guys. Hope you guys understand the basics. And thanks for tuning in to Rawdogging Reality, episode 2. Have a great day. Now fuck off.